Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Andy.
And Andy, I want to ask you a question. What's the worst thing you've ever done?
I think it was the Madam Web episode of this podcast. Or maybe, no, actually, it was probably comparing Mario Galaxy to candy induced diarrhea.
Yeah, I mean, uh, that's. I think that's the worst thing you've done, Andy. You're doing all right. Um, for those of you who have seen the movie that we're going to be talking about, you understand why that's the question I asked. And we are talking today about the new movie, The Drama. And this is a movie at which we're going to do a little bit of episode before we do spoiler warning, but we're going to go spoiler warning pretty early on this episode.
Yeah.
Because this movie is, there's a lot to talk about. There's not too much that we want to spoil. I want to say this. I want to encourage you, if you're the type of person that wants to hear what people have to say about a movie and then decides if they want to go, please go to this movie before hearing what we say. Like, literally hear as little as you can before seeing this movie.
Absolutely. That's how I went into this movie. I had not even so much as watched a trailer for this movie.
I think I'd seen like the teaser trailer, and I'll say they did a good job with the teaser trailer, not giving too much away. So,
Yes, they did.
so even now, I'm going to give a brief summary, and then we'll go with just our basic feedback, and then we'll get into spoilers. So, brief summary: Charlie and Emma have a storybook relationship, but just days before their wedding, a revelation about something from one of their pasts threatens to unravel everything. Andy,
Yeah.
so this is just a loaded question this week. Was the drama good?
I think the drama may end up being one of my favorite movies of the year, Jeremy. This movie is weird and uncomfortable and unique. I mean, there's just nothing quite like this movie, I don't think. And uh, maybe sometimes it's circumstance too. Like I said, I went into this movie pretty blind, very blind. I literally just knew that Zendaya and Robert Pattinson were in it, and that was enough to make me want to see it. I didn't even know that there was any kind of big thing that could be spoiled in this movie, and I went into this movie and I just I was just blown away by the risk this movie took and the risk that Zendaya and Robert Pattinson took being in this movie.
Yeah. So, sometimes I'll just refer to my notes because, like, I can't, even as I write the notes, I'm like, not sure. And then we get to the episode and I'm like, I still don't know. And I'm like, just stick to your notes, Jeremy. And that's when I say, in my notes, this is what I said. And what I wrote in my notes was yes and no. And what I
Yeah,
mean by that is, um, there, this movie, it kind of has a wild premise. And I think it really leans hard into some structured things that I have an issue with. But I'm going to start with the positive and say, despite the fact that I think at times I don't even think this is a very good movie, it's a movie that I am fascinated with, and it's, I think, my favorite movie of the year so far. So
yeah,
it's very contradictory to say because, like I said, we'll get into it. We'll talk about some of the issues I have with it as a movie, but I cannot deny it's a brainworm, man. It just gets in there and it just sticks with you.
yeah.
I can't stop thinking about it. And like, I'm so glad that you encouraged me to go see this so that we could talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we always try not to just use like hyperbole on here, like this is the greatest thing ever and all that stuff. But I mean, I really just don't think there's any other movie like this. This is just, it's so strange. The way it balances all the different things. And like, it's really funny because, like I said, without giving anything away, this is a super uncomfortable movie to watch. But I think maybe just because Zendaya and Pattinson are so good and they're just such likable, or what seem to be like likable real life people, it you're always just kind of rooting for these people, even though the movie gives you tons of reasons not to. And they, through it all, they just have this likability. And I think a part of my like for this movie came from the fact that Zendaya and Robert Pattinson both are in a position in Hollywood. I think especially Zendaya, they don't have to do a movie like this to further their career. They don't have to take this big risk. This could have been a generic late '90s. This could have been what's the Freddie Prinze Jr. movie with the "Kiss Me" song in it? She's All That.
She's
This
all
could have
that.
just been, yeah, this could have just been 2026. She's All That, and people probably would have eaten it up because it's Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, but they wanted to take this huge risk, and I think I don't want to say improve their acting chops because they're both already good, but like just take that risk. And I came out of this movie a bigger fan of both of them, and I already really liked both of them.
Yeah, I think that uh, I'll say this because um, this is one of my first things where I'm going to be a downer on the pod, but I'm going to try to spin it positive again. I'm really not a very big fan of either Pattinson or Zendaya, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I do think that they're both talented, but one thing I think I can say for sure for both of them is I think they both got really good taste, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the projects they pick are really interesting. And and this is just another example of that you're right. They aren't doing the typical thing that they could do. They aren't leaning on just let me be just Pattinson's not going let me just be like kind of handsome leading man, and Zendaya's not choosing very typical choices either. Um, I'm gonna be honest. There's points throughout this movie where I was going back and forth, going, "Is Pattinson the right guy for this role?" It's kind of
Yeah.
weird because his character's such like a goober, and
I
then I'm
know.
like, but at the same time, I'm like, well, Pattinson is kind of a weirdo. Like it kind
Yeah.
of is perfect for him because I start thinking like, well, who would be better in this role? And I was having a really hard time thinking of anybody else who would be like the right mix of like he's got enough charm that you get why she's with him, but he's also like such a awkward doofusy guy that yeah, it was an impressive performance by him.
It was, and I mean, yeah, he kind of is that awkward doofus, but I mean that as a compliment. I really do, because I watched him and Zendaya. They were on Jimmy Fallon's show together, and he has the same energy that he does in this movie, except he's not, as much of a train wreck. But and it's funny that I say I'm a Pattinson fan because I really did not like Mickey 17 at all last year, and he's been in a lot of movies I don't like, but I just like the idea. I think of what Pattinson does is, like coming out of Twilight. And he's like in Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which is a really good movie, even though it's kind of like the not talked about Nolan movie. And I just like the fact that he really seems like he wants to be a good, accomplished actor. And he is willing to take these roles that most of the time are not very flattering for him. I mean, in Mickey 17, the different versions of him, he's a doofus. Like, he really likes to lean into that. So I admire it. I am glad for a number of reasons that we do this podcast, but one is that it documents everything we said. And after Dune 2, I said that Zendaya is a huge star. I just think she has that it factor. And, I stand by that. And we talked about it a little bit in our 2026. She's on pace to have an all time great movie year. And I thought this was just a great start to it.
Yeah. Uh, Pattinson, I do think one of the reasons maybe I've been kind of slow to get on board with Pattinson is post Twilight. I do think that there was a lot of that very blatant, intentional, I'm veering so hard against that perception of me. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'll play anything that's super weird or different or scummy so I am the most not the Twilight
Mm-hmm.
guy that I can be. And and I think like he's kind of gotten far away from it now. I think there's sort of like a balancing of the pendulum where he's like I was over here and finally I swung too far this way, but now I've sort of settled in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
where I don't think he has to feel like I have to prove I'm not the Twilight guy anymore, and so now he just gets to be. Um, Zendaya, I'm not as high on her as you are. I like her, but my whole thing is like, hey, can you play a character with personality ever, or are you just always going to be sort of the sour, grouchy person? Uh,
Yeah.
that said, that said, she's got that pitch down perfect, and this movie was the best use of Zendaya and her like her the way that she emotes. It was the best use of her yet.
Yeah, and I definitely hear your criticism. I think we even talked about it when we did Dune, and I think I made that point too. It's like we get it, like you're mad at the world, but I don't know, like I just don't know what it is. Like, and I don't. It's not like anything gross on my part. Like I just think she has that charisma
No,
and
and it's
that X
fair.
factor, and
there's a lot of people that I'm sure that I like that are the same way, that kind of just have that one tone or something, and for whatever reason, like, it's okay. And I don't know what it is about her, and maybe it's just the fact that, like, uh I don't know, I just keep expecting it, and I don't see, like, I don't know. um so I'm the grouch here. I'm gonna admit that I'm the grouch. I do think she's really talented.
And that's fine. And you're right. She does often go to that go to that well. But I just also like these actors, actresses that can be like, hey, I can play along in the Spider-Man universe, or if you need me to jump into this role, I can also do that. So it's like I do
Hmm.
agree with you that she does just go to that well a lot, but I do think she has range. I really do. Now, I'll stand by what I said before after we did Dune a couple years ago. Maybe it wouldn't hurt her to just be real bubbly and happy in a movie, but I don't know. I
Just to
just
show
like
she
what she's
can.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to show she can, but I don't know. I like what she's doing, and I just she's got a lot to do in this movie, and Pattinson does too. But like, she's got a lot to do, and we'll get into it. But like to like because when the movie starts, you're just kind of like, oh, cool, like Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, and we see that kind of like their meet cute and everything, and you're like, well, this is great, and then you have to really be along for the ride with her in this movie because you go through a lot with her.
Yeah. All right. I said we were going to do a spoiler warning early, and here we are, almost 12 minutes in, and we haven't got to it yet because we ended up having the whole Pattinson and Zendaya discussion right off the bat. But which is fair. It belonged before spoilers because it's not spoilery. So we're going spoiler warning now. We've already warned you that you should see this movie before hearing us talk, but for real, we're going to get into those spoilers. So you've been adequately warned at this point.
Yes.
All right. So it's not exactly like I'm going to go scene by scene here, but you're right. The movie starts, and it's a sort of long montage of
Mm-hmm.
developing their relationship. And
Yeah.
it does the thing that has become so popular these days. We don't get the credit sequence and the title card until like 10 minutes into the movie. And you're like, oh, shoot, we're just starting. I didn't even really like, I felt like we were a ways into this thing. And then you
Movies really
realize
love doing
why.
that these days.
Yeah, but you kind of realize why, because you realize that whole 10 minutes was just all build up and background to
Mm-hmm.
like get into the actual story.
Yeah.
So they're doing the final wedding preparation stuff early in this movie, and so they're at a tasting for like the food that they're gonna have, I guess, and they're drinking a little too much alcohol. It's those two characters, the Pattinson and Zendaya character, Charlie and Emma, and then their best man and maid of honor, um, and they somehow it comes up. Rachel, the maid of honor, is the one like pushing this thing, like, uh, "Hey, everybody, tell the worst thing that they've done." And it kind of starts with her husband, like she wants him to tell a story about a dog, and she leaks that, and he doesn't want to tell it. She's like, "Well, I'll tell the worst thing we've done," and they go around the table and tell the worst things he's done. And his thing was that he was on a date, and basically they got attacked by a dog in an alley, and he used the girl as a shield for the dog to attack. And then Rachel goes, and her thing was that she had this neighbor that was a little slow and wanted to show her this abandoned RV in the woods, and she locked him in a closet and left him there overnight, which was really awful. But he
Yeah.
got found. He's okay. He's still alive. Pattinson kind of awkwardly just laughs off like I cyberbullied a kid, I think, so badly that he maybe moved because of that, or maybe it was just coincidence, but he did move.
And you don't even really know if Pattinson's
Yeah.
telling the truth.
Yeah, he's so awkward in that scene.
He is.
And then it gets to Zendaya, and she says, and this is the big thing, she says, "I planned a school shooting." And the whole
Yeah.
mood just changed at the table. And they're like,
Well,
"What?" And she's like, obviously I didn't do it, but I planned it. I had a gun. I went to school, was planning a school shooting." And Rachel, the maid of honor, freaks out, says, "My cousin's in a wheelchair because of a shooting." And she blows up, and Pattinson's sort of out of whack. And that becomes the catalyst for the movie, is this revelation that like she was the type of person when she was younger that she did this. And I should have set up the scene better, because the scene actually starts kind of brilliantly before that, with them discussing the fact that they saw the DJ for their wedding. What they think they saw was her smoking heroin out on the street
yes.
like the night before, or maybe just on their way. And they're discussing like, do we fire her? And they're having this discussion of like, well, how bad would somebody have to, like, what's the worst thing somebody would have to do for you to fire them? and they're
Right.
setting up this like whole line of what's the moral line, for that.
Mhm.
And like, what if would you bring a pedophile to your wedding? And they're having this whole discussion about, and that's what brings up the whole thing about bad things. What's the worst thing someone could do? And Zendaya's character is the only one defending this girl, saying, "I don't think we should overreact. We shouldn't judge her by maybe that's just the worst moment of her life." And she's actually the one being empathetic. And then of course she's the one who has the biggest bomb to drop when they do this other thing. So the whole movie becomes this idea of what's the line where could you
Yes.
marry someone who once was the type of person who planned a school shooting?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it just comes out of nowhere. I guess it doesn't because it is kind of. I mean, it's just no one's gonna guess this is what's gonna happen. And you're
No,
right.
I
And then
would.
all of a sudden,
You could have given me 100 guesses of what's going to be the big thing in this movie, and I would have never guessed it's going to be a movie mostly about someone who planned a school shooting.
yeah, it's really wild. And all of a sudden, just everything in the movie shifts. And I think too that's why I like this movie so much because it makes you wonder. It makes you think. Like, oh, is she? Is Pattinson overreacting? Is Rachel, the maid of honor, overreacting? I think this movie gets deep into like, you know, how judgmental the world is. That I don't know. There's just all these layers all of a sudden, and you're like, holy cow! This movie just went from Pattinson and Zendaya and what a cute couple they are to these huge questions, and then this is where I think they both just kind of go to the next level in their performance because then there's this awkwardness and there's all these unsaid things and you get to see Zendaya deal with it and at one point she's kind of like let's just forget about it for now and talk about it later and Pattinson's just kind of this bumbling oaf in some points but he's like okay but then he'll be like no we probably need to talk about this and it's just it's fascinating it's just really fascinating.
It is fascinating because the movie does exactly what most of my favorite movies do, or a lot of times movies that I love do. Is you're right. They make you think about it. They make you think, what would your response, what would your reaction be? And
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, like maybe I shouldn't even share because I'm afraid what people are going to think about me. But like, I was almost immediately like, wow, they're overreacting to her. All she said was she planned and
Mm-hmm.
thought about it. Like, there's a giant chasm between even going to the school with a gun and actually going through with it because that's really like where it becomes reality and you determine if you're the type of person who could or couldn't like. And so I'm like, she didn't even get to that. So I was like, they're definitely overreacting. But then I'm like, well, dang, am I being way too casual about this? And then the funny thing is, there were several times throughout the movie I'm like, I can't even believe this movie is like it has the courage to be about somebody to have this topic, this subject matter. And then I'm like, well, if the subject matter is that sensitive, why am I being so casual about my approach? Like it just, I kept going back and forth. I was wrestling with it the whole time.
Yeah, this movie is fearless. I mean, it doesn't shy away from anything, and it doesn't. It kind of just, and this is the thing I like that movies do, where it doesn't really try and sway you one way or the other. It's just going, here it is. She planned a school shooting, and it's not like a pro-gun or anti-gun movie or a pro-violence or anti-violence movie. It is just, here you go. And then there's the other layer of like, really, Rachel, who has the strongest reaction. The thing that she did was pretty terrible too. But then all of a sudden,
Oh
she's
yeah.
she's all of a sudden just this morally superior person. So that's kind of a fascinating angle of this movie too. How quickly we can brush aside our own stupid things that we've done and point the sword at somebody else, so to speak. And I just instantly became this really fascinating movie, while also still getting laughs throughout the movie from me, not related to the school shooting, but just different interactions and Pattinson's just awkwardness. And I don't know, it's just I'm getting so ahead of myself because I'm getting so excited just re-talking about this movie.
Uh, no, yeah. There's there's a lot to unpack, and it is hard not to want to just start to get into all the different boxes to
Yeah.
unpack. But um, yeah, Rachel has the biggest reaction, and I had the same thought too immediately. Is like, really, Rachel, you're the one that's gonna like you did the worst thing. Like you did something you actually executed a terrible action against somebody,
Yes.
and it takes a long time, but Pattinson does eventually bring it up in the movie, and she really brushes it off quickly. And I'm like, he needs to press her
Mm-hmm.
more. But that brings me to one of my favorite things that happened right after the movie. Um, yeah, I'll just go ahead and say this because it's appropriate now, as we're talking about Rachel and how she actually just sucks. That was the maid of honor's name is Rachel. I was walking down the movie and there was three girls come up behind me. I don't know, college age maybe, and I hear them talking and I hear one of them say to her friends, "Is it just me or was Rachel the worst?" And I like kind
Yeah.
of slowed down. I was like, I want to hear that. And they're like, "Oh no, she's the worst." And the girl's like, "Good. I was worried it was just me. I was thinking this Rachel's terrible." And I was like, I had the same thought. I'm glad I'm getting validation from you girls. Thank you.
So that was I saw it with my college daughter Molly, and that was her reaction too. Like Rachel's the worst. But I will say this: like, don't confuse the actress with the performance. Like, it's a good performance, I think, by this actress.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, she's supposed to be kind of this despicable character.
She's a total Karen for sure.
Absolutely. And fast forward a little bit to the end, talking about her, she does attend this wedding and she does such a great job of just giving the most hateful scowls at them during this wedding. Like, she looks high and mighty, she looks judgmental, she looks disgusted. She does a great job with her facial expressions towards Zendaya and Pattinson.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I should say it was good acting by her. Elena Haim is her name.
Yeah.
I know she's a Haim. That's all I know. And I mainly know that because she was in Licorice Pizza, right? She was
Yes, she was.
the main girl in that. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
obviously she was in One Battle After Another for very little bit. But
Yes.
every time I see her now, I'm just like, oh, it's the Haim girl from Licorice Pizza.
Yep. I
And
thought she
then
was great.
yeah, the guy who played Pattinson's best friend, I thought also did a good job. And I'm
Me
sorry, I
too.
don't want to try to pronounce his name because
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
fair. He's good.
yeah. Um, so good acting all around is what we're trying to say. You mentioned that it managed to be about this super serious thing, and you said two things about it that I wanted to just say I totally agree with and really appreciated. One is that it wasn't a movie that was taking a real stance, and I really
Hmm.
appreciated that about it. I mean, like clearly it was like, you know, school shootings are bad. It wasn't like it was
Of
neutral to
course,
that,
of course.
but it wasn't like it was there was not a message in this movie. I wouldn't call this a political movie. I wouldn't say like, I don't know, conservatives, you're not going to like this movie, or liberals, you're not going to like this movie because of the way
Right.
it lean. It's not that at all.
No.
So I really appreciated that. And the other thing is that you said this movie managed to be funny, and like it really did, and it actually even did in some of the like moments in places you wouldn't expect. That was kind of bold to go for humor. It was a lot of little flashbacks to younger Zendaya when she was like doing this stuff, and she explains that one of the things that drew her to this shooting was she said she just kind of liked the aesthetic, and you're like,
Hmm.
that's a weird way to say it, but then it's showing her as like a little kid like feeling like she feels like she's BA holding a gun and looking tough,
Yeah.
and like somebody who feels not strong in the world, that's a way of feeling strong, I guess. But she's doing like these little vlogs, and there's humor about it because like every time she tries to record, something happens on the computer, it messes it up. And then
That
the
got a
funniest one was
huge
one.
laugh in our theater.
Yes. The funniest one is there's this one flashback to where she says, I think it's like Sally or something. She's like, "You're gonna be the first one to die," and drops the B word, and everybody died laughing. And I'm like, how? I don't know how you get people laughing about a teenage girl saying, "I'm gonna shoot another girl first," but it was just, I the the craft and the skill of the movie that they could do it in a way that felt humorous instead of just because this could have been a very heavy morose movie where I'm like, oh man, this is a slog because it's so serious. But you're
Yes.
right, it finds a lot of lightheartedness while still being serious.
Yeah, it never cheats. Like, it never is like, you never feel like the director was like, hey, it's getting a little too serious. Let's throw just a little slapstick comedy in here for no reason. Like, one of the things that probably got the biggest laugh in our theater, so at the beginning of the movie, when things are still good, before the school shooting revelation, Pattinson's kind of venting about work to Zendaya, and she just pantses it. Okay? That got a big laugh in our theater. Well, then, way later, when things are bad, they call back to it. Zendaya and Pattinson are, I think they're kind of arguing or being real snippy, and he just pantses her. And then it goes horribly wrong because then he accidentally like hits her in the face. And that just, I was like, how in the midst of all this did that just get a huge laugh? And it also just kind of feel almost real, like natural. I mean, like something maybe a couple would do, like where the guy's just like, I got to break this tension somehow. And I don't know, it just was amazing how that stuff worked.
Yeah. This movie, I'll be honest, it never got as weird as I expected, and that really goes down to just one simple element that made me expect it. It's an A24 movie, and it never went what I would call full A24. You know, I expected something weird, something like real artsy or experimental to happen in the movie, and it never did. And I was like, thank goodness. Thank goodness this movie just kind of stayed pretty normal because it's better for it.
I thought this movie was also like, I agree with you completely. I thought it was a step back in the right direction for A24.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, because that's when I thought A24 for the longest time, I thought, like, this is making, like, movies for intelligent film watchers and adults and being unique and original. And then A24 eventually became like, no, we're, like, super weird and quirky. Like, it really veered hard into that. So you're right. I'm glad it kind of got back.
Yeah.
So a lot of this movie is Pattinson sort of wrestling from that point on. It's Pattinson wrestling with basically like, do I even really know this person because of this revelation? And is this a person I can trust now to marry because of this revelation? At first, I was like, I can't believe this is gonna be the movie. Like, this is such an overreaction. You've been dating this girl for 2 years. This, revelation. But like, they do a good job of, I think, selling it. And Zendaya's really just kind of like, it's the worst part of her life. She doesn't want it to be like a big part of it. It's the reason she doesn't tell people. She only said it because she was drunk and didn't have the filter to not say it. And it's just like, can we please just move on and act like this never happened? And anyway, so as I was saying, it's just Pattinson in different scenes struggling to get over with it. So you got the scene like where they're with the photographer, and dude literally just like, it's so in his head he can't even like fake happiness while they're supposed to be meeting with the photographer, and the photographer's like, let's take some pictures, and he can't give a natural smile to save his life. And that scene was hilarious because the photographer is just over and over again, just natural smile, just a natural smile, just a smile like you would in real life. And yeah,
I thought that scene was incredible. I thought Pattinson was incredible in that. And kudos to the actress who played the photographer. She did a great job. And then finally, she just like, I don't remember what she's like, I'm sure it'll all be fine on the day. Or I don't know what she says, but it's all just really funny. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, where just it still feels true to the movie, but it really gets a lot of laughs.
Yeah. So I think this is a good point for me to get into my criticism of this movie. The thing that I think stops it for me from being like just a all-time great. I think that the movie, probably because the main like sort of critic of the movie, or the movie is mostly critical of Emma, the Zendaya character who has this revelation about herself. And I think to balance it out, they went really hard into everything else about her is very likable, and everything else and everybody else is pretty unlikable. I'm sitting there watching this movie and going like, other than being kind of Robert Pattinson, they really are not selling me on why she wants to be with him, because they started off, I mean, like the meet cutes, it's kind of funny if you're Robert Pattinson that you fake your way into, oh, I read this book, and then it comes out on the first date, oh, I totally didn't read the book, I just lied about that to get a date with you. And then, I mean, it just goes on and on. Like, they have nothing in common. Like, he won't, they're at the dance practice. He won't even entertain her idea of like dancing just naturally. He's like, no, we're going to choreograph. You got to do it my way. Like, it just constantly throughout, he's just kind of the worst. And it just becomes even more the worst as he's going through this stuff. He doesn't deal with this well at all. He's kind of a wimp about it. Eventually, the worst thing he does is during emotional breakdown while he's talking with a coworker, he cheats a little bit. He ends up like,
Yeah.
you know, kissing this coworker and almost aggressively getting into a worse situation and before he cuts himself off. But you're just like, dude, you are the worst. And I think they did all that so that it balanced out like these people have no right to judge her. And
Yes.
but really what it went so heavy with me that I was like, I I can't even stand him, you know, because of this.
Yeah.
Now, he's charming, he's Robert Pattinson, so like did I still want them to end up together because that's just what movies can magically do. They can make you want any two people to end up together if they start with showing you this is what you want and then you just stick with it. But I just wish they would have made him a little more likable and a little less of a doofus.
Yeah, that's a totally valid criticism on your part. And I think what I would have done is just if before at some point before her revelation about the school shooting, if we could have just seen a better side of him, like if he would have agreed, like I bet Pattinson could have nailed just doing some improv like terrible dance. And you know, it just makes Zendaya like if he was like, yeah, let's just wing it, and he just does some ridiculous dance. I bet Pattinson could have nailed that because he does have that doofus energy, and that would have instantly just made him more likable. And then he could have unraveled, you know, to me, and that would have been fine because it's just like, yo, he's a good, likable dude, but he just does not know how to deal with this. I agree with you. I think they needed one scene of Pattinson just being like, oh, this guy's so cool. I can totally see how he got the Zendaya character. That's it's totally fair
Yeah.
on your part.
And there's even small things that I shouldn't even be that critical of, but like they're talking about their wedding speeches, and she's like, "We should talk about the wedding speeches," and he's like, "No, we can't tell each other what we're talking about." She's like, "Well, just to know, so we're not going to say the same things." And she's like, she starts naming, "Well, you gonna talk about this? You gonna talk about this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm talking about that." And it's just the idea of like he's gonna take all the good stuff and be like, "Yeah, no, I'm using that. You can't use it." And it's like he doesn't even say like, "Oh, maybe that's not fair. Maybe like we should talk about this." I mean, just little things like that where you're like, "Dude, you're just kind of oblivious and the worst." So yeah, um, I cannot remember. Does it shows him at work? But what does he do in this movie? I don't think it was.
He
It ever
works in a
just
museum. That's about all we find
Oh,
out.
that's
Like,
right. He works in like she talks about how he's really smart and stuff. I think that's the stuff they needed to show us a little more. Maybe show us the side of him that is like a competent, capable person. Because pretty much it doesn't really go much into their lives outside of this dynamic. They're just dealing with this. I mean, like all the little montage of cute moments and stuff. But
yeah,
yeah, I needed to see him be a competent dude for a little while. So that
I can't argue with
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I do agree with you completely. I think those are good notes on your part.
yeah. Uh, Now, again, that said, let's get right back to how I enjoyed the ride. So, um, I'm sure I'm skipping things, and we might want to come back to things, but it culminates all in the wedding. And the wedding, I don't know how
Mhm.
long the wedding lasted in the actual movie. It felt like a good chunk of movie. It might have been 15 minutes of movie, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
What would you think? Um,
I 10, 15, like because
yeah,
it just kind of cuts to them standing there doing their vows. Like we don't get like pre wedding, like them getting
it's
dressed or
true.
anything. Like they're just in the ceremony, and then what we get mostly is the wedding reception.
Right. Yeah. Where everything sort of just builds to that. You know, I mean, it's all been building, and you're kind of like, as it's that, like you said, the uncomfortableness as a watcher. You're like, just make it through this reception and then deal with it. But you just know that's not the way this is going to work. Everything's going to get
No,
ugly at the reception, and it's it starts with some bad speeches. Uh,
yeah.
all time fumble by the best man to even let I know it's his wife and she's the maid of honor and she's supposed to give a speech,
Uh,
but he knew where she stood on this thing. You don't let her get up and make a speech. She's been
you don't.
drinking.
But
Yeah.
I thought that was really good writing where she gets up and she actually doesn't like go off on them, but she says things very passive aggressive and things that they would know are digs at them. So that was a really well written speech. And again, kudos to that actress for nailing all that. And then Pattinson with the all time just terrible speech. And
Well, before you get to
he
that,
brings up with her dad sitting right there, he brings up their physical life together. We'll just say that. And
Which his
you know,
friend
it
had
made me a
already
little
told
bit.
him, don't do. He's like, don't do it. His
Yes,
friend's over there just shaking his
and
head like, no.
because he's just unraveling, and it's kind of low hanging fruit as far as like getting a laugh, but it works. It works. It just does. And I really liked Zendaya in this scene because she doesn't do the thing that we've seen a billion times in movies where like she gets up and storms out or she just starts screaming. She just kind of sits, she almost like hunkers down, and you can tell she's like, I just want to disappear right now. And she's acting completely with her face and her body language. And I just really appreciated that it kind of sidestepped a lot of the stereotypes that we've seen before in a movie where like the bride runs away and all that stuff. I thought that was really good by her.
Yeah. Uh, I'm going to back up a little bit to get back to where I want to be here in this wedding reception. So they finally have the conversation with the DJ that they saw, the girl they saw smoking heroin.
Yes.
And it's a funny scene. And Pattinson, again, being the worst, but trying to be supportive. She's like, do you want me to just go talk to her? And he goes, no, we'll do it together. But then he goes in there and he immediately is useless
Just
in the conversation.
chickens out,
And then
yeah.
starts to like break down and like sits down and starts crying. And so Zendaya's having to confront her. And this is like the complex thing that I like, you know, where it's like, this is kind of true to life. Whereas Zendaya is actually the one who was like the most understanding and supportive of this girl. But then she ends up being the one that has to confront her, and the girl like accuses her of being the jerk in the situation. And
Yep.
it was kind of like, I mean, again, it's played for a laugh, even though it like is like a frustrating situation for the character that Zendaya is playing, where this girl's like, "You're being a, can I be honest? You're being a real jerk about this." And it's
Yeah.
like, we saw you smoking heroin, and I'm just trying to get you to like have a conversation about it. And so she
Yeah. She's
fires
like,
her.
just admit it. Like, quit lying.
Yeah. And so she fires her, and it's like, again, you really feel for Zendaya's character because it goes back to like at that dinner, she was the only person who was against firing her immediately, and
Yeah.
you know, nobody gets to stand up for it and say like, hey, she actually was very empathetic towards you, and you know, you should be a little nicer to her. No, she just, you know, has to take the hit, and then
Yep.
they get a replacement DJ, and that dude, what a
It's
character
hilarious.
he is. He comes in just way too way too upbeat and excited about being a DJ. And when he starts talking to the best man about the equipment he has, and just
Oh, it's so good.
dropping like, I've got a such and such, you know, thing with these chords and stuff, and the guy's just looking at him like, cool, man. And as an audience, you're like, yeah, we've all met this person who's
Yep.
like so into their like tech and equipment and gear, or you know, whatever it is. Could be a car guy, could be a computer guy, could be, you know, whatever it is that other people just like, I don't know, man.
And no, yeah, nobody else cares as much as that person does.
Yeah. But
It's
I
great.
bring all that up to talk about the dad's speech, because the dad's speech was interesting. Zendaya's dad gets up and speaks, and we never met his character before this wedding reception.
Yeah.
It's the first time we hear him talk, and he's talking about her. And he makes a reference to her becoming a real anti-gun activist, and you get the Rachel character like, ha, you know, like obnoxious laugh in the background. Everybody in the wedding's kind of awkward looking at it, like, did she just laugh at that? Like,
Yeah.
And you're worried about like something awkward's gonna happen here because he's just saying all this stuff, and then actually like a really great jump scare in the movie. You get
A
this
phenomenal jump
loud
scare.
pop, and you're just, everybody freaks out, and it's the DJ guy setting up. He's like, "Sorry, everybody, these are not the cables I asked for."
Yes.
But it was jarring. Like this whole movie that's been building up on this whole like idea of shootings, and it sounds like a gunshot goes off in the middle of the speech.
It's really well done, and it doesn't feel like a cheap thing. Like, oh, you know,
Mm-mm.
like with horror movies, like, you know, the cat jumps out of nowhere. Like this felt like kind of the whole, in a way, the whole movie was building up to this, and that got a huge like gasp, and then a like almost like the uncomfortable laugh afterwards in the theater I was in. So it really did what it was supposed to do, I think.
Yeah, it did. Um, Little bit of a cliche, but it's okay. I don't know how else they were going to like kind of push this forward, where you get Zendaya's in the bathroom and she overhears Pattinson's work friend reference
Yeah.
the shooting thing, and so she goes and addresses it right, you know, with Pattinson, pulls him aside and says she was talking about you know, a school shooting, and he's like, it's probably just some other shooting, and she's like, I'm gonna go get her to ask her, who told. And dude, it's one of those classic in the movie. You're watching, going, dude, just say it. Like I threw out a hypothetical. This is my fault, but he doesn't. So she brings her in. And of course, she thinks, again, classic movie thing, she thinks she's being brought in to talk about the other thing, the fact that he kissed her and stuff. And so she
Yeah.
immediately starts defending herself. I just want to say, he kissed me. It wasn't my idea, whatever.
Oh,
And then Zendaya's like, what? And Pattinson's still standing there like a total doofus, just like,
yeah.
I don't know what I could have done to prevent any of this, like,
Yeah.
and but I mean, as far as movie entertainment, this is what good movies do. They bring all things together come together at a head at the end,
Yeah.
and lets it play out. It sort of all erupts at the same time.
And even though it's all this crazy zany stuff, like it did feel like the natural unfolding of this story. Like I never was like, okay, so now all of a sudden, all these things converge. Like it was done really well, I thought.
Yeah. Uh, and then that leads into Pattinson's speech because uh, what did he? Yeah, he makes a reference to that, to like kissing that girl in his speech or something like that, and she's sitting in
Yeah.
there with
It's
her
just
boyfriend, and he's like, "What?"
yeah.
And another, again, really funny moment because this is like really uncomfortable and it's really serious because he's just unraveling, but he's starting to try to like spill his heart out to Zendaya and just be like, "Look, I'm the screw up. I don't deserve you, but I love you." And like it should be sweet, but in the background, you hear that girl and her boyfriend like arguing, and she's saying, "I told him, no, 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 I don't want this,"
Oh my
which
god.
is not what happened in the real situation.
Right. And they've already established earlier in the movie that this is like a big tough dude. I don't remember how, but it had been talked about at some point.
Yeah, she makes some reference to like, she goes, "You've seen him. He would
Yeah.
break me," or
Yeah.
something like. With I don't even remember
Yeah.
what the comment was, but just um, it's a dude gets up, yeah, walks right over to Pattinson and just headbutts him.
Yeah.
and
It's great.
and
It's
it
great.
it I will say this, like I did know from the like movie poster that Pattinson
Yes.
has like a bruised up, messed up face, and of course my thought for the poster is like there should be some weird, she beat him up plot line or something. She hit him, Zendaya did in the movie, and I had kind of like forgotten about it at this point in the movie. And when he does that, I'm
Right.
like, oh, there's the Pattinson gets his bruised up face in the movie from that headbutt from the guy, and that really was like kind of it. Like we just jumped from the reception at that point because by the time like he gets up from it, like she's gone, right? She just That's when
Yeah.
Zendaya
It
does
then
take
cuts
off.
to him going back to their apartment. And you kind of get I think maybe he's talking to the best man maybe. He's like, I don't know where she is. So we just left to kind of deduce that she took off. And I wanted to talk about this ending because like so many times in movies like this when there's all this crazy stuff, like sometimes it does become a challenge to land the plane.
Hmm.
And I thought the ending of this movie worked really, really well. Just Pattinson kind of sulks into this bar apparently that they go to,
Yeah,
and all
and
that worked really well. I
it was a
thought.
good callback because she had mentioned like maybe we should go to this diner, and he's
Yes,
like, on our wedding night. She's like, yeah, it's open late. We're gonna be hungry. Like
it was a nice
it
callback.
had some sort of sentimental value to him, and so I think it was like he doesn't know where she is, so maybe she's going to this diner she talked about. So he just goes in there and orders a Coke and a burger and sits down, and then sure enough, yeah, she shows up, and
And then they do the thing they've done a couple times throughout the movie where it's like, let's just start over. Hi, I'm Emma, and that's just how the movie ends. And I thought it was really the right note to end this movie on, where it doesn't all of a sudden become a happy ending, and there's still all this crazy, terrible stuff has happened, but it kind of gives you a little bit of hope that maybe they will be okay somehow. Probably, I mean, really, they probably wouldn't in real life, but like, I don't know. Whatever the tone it needed to strike to end this movie, I thought it did it.
it did, because what it really did that was so like neat is that so much of the movie is Robert Pattinson's character trying to decide, can I be with a girl who is this? And by the end of the movie, he's done so much stupid stuff that he's realized oh no, the real question is, can she be with me? And
Yeah,
so they're both looking at each other going, you know what? We're both deciding, as dumb as some of the stuff you've done in the past and I've done in the past, we're still
we're
gonna
gonna
we're
move forward.
we're gonna move forward. And so that's what makes it work. Is that he had to, and I think that's probably why he had to be such a doofus character. Is he had to realize it about himself? Is like, yeah, I've been sitting here wondering, like, is she? He wouldn't say is she good enough for me, but that's essentially what it is, like,
Right.
and then is he realizes, am I good enough for her? Is really the question, um, which is yeah, kind of neat.
Yeah, kudos to the writer director for like I said, just finding that balance. And once again, just Zendaya and Pattinson doing exactly what they need to do for the scene. I felt like.
Yeah. Uh, so one thing I wanted to talk about just a little bit is just we said it from the beginning. This is a movie that makes you think, what would you do? And I was sitting there thinking, like, what would I do if I was part of this friend group? If I'm advising Pattinson on all this, and I don't know if I could say it eloquently or not, but I would just be like, dude, isn't this this is exactly what we'd hope from anybody who's ever struggling with stuff as a teenager, like that they don't do anything terrible and then they learn and grow from it and they progress. Like,
Right.
is your basic premise that anybody who had these terrible thoughts when they were younger and not mature enough to understand should just then never be qualified to ever be, in a healthy relationship and satisfied? Like, is she not like the poster child for redemption, and all this stuff? And
Yeah.
you're wondering, like, where are the people in this story that are saying some of these things? Granted, it's probably not even true to real life that somebody's always around to say the like really logical things, because that's not what happens in real life.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And I think this is also just a movie about vain, shallow people.
That's true. I did have that thought for sure, where I thought these are obviously like uh kind of upper class good looking people, because they're like, oh, could I be with somebody who's like that? It's like, hey dude, you all have clearly never been single for a very long time, because you're like,
Right.
could I marry Zendaya, but she had, when she did something in the past? Yeah, you know I think I could get over that. But
And that's just another layer to me on the quality of Zendaya's performance in this movie, where she just has that like there's several scenes where she just like, I just want everyone to stop talking about this, because her point of view is like, it was the past and I didn't do anything and I'm admitting it. And so in a way you can see how she is, in a sense, kind of the victim of all these other people and their holier than thou attitudes. So that's the another just amazing thing about this movie. There's just all these different angles you can look at it from.
yeah. And another scene we didn't talk about, which I thought was a really good scene, was Pattinson when he finally does start to like take up for her a little bit. He's talking to the Rachel character, trying to talk her into still being the maid of honor at the
Yeah.
wedding, and he starts saying some of these things like, you know, these he's kind of blaming America. I think is what he's doing. Like,
Yeah.
it's the culture. Like, it's not that unusual. It's not like she had this original idea. It's out there.
Yep.
And he goes, think about it. If this many shootings happen, think about how many people thought about it and didn't do it. And it starts doing this like montage of just showing people like throughout the city, and they're kind of shooting people who look a little like in despair or something, and you're
Bradley.
like, it's giving you the idea of like, could this be a person who got close to doing it once, had it on their mind? And it just is one of those things, again, makes you think. And it's like, yeah, that is kind of a scary thought, but it's probably a real thought. And yeah, it was a good scene.
It was really good scene. Just a lot of really great layers to this movie.
Yeah. I'm going to be really curious to rewatch this movie, because
Hmm.
obviously the first time we said it again and again, we didn't know what we were getting to going in. Even once that revelation about the school shooting happened, it was a little bit before I was like, oh, this is like the whole movie. Like, this is going to be the focus. It's not. I thought it might have been like Domino number one, and then now it's going to be a whole like series of revelations about both characters. Something. I was like, no, they're really honing on this one. So yeah, I'm very curious to see now that I know, and I maybe watching with a more alert eye for like, what are they showing us, and how that's going to affect my thoughts on this movie.
Yeah, same. Really looking forward to rewatching this again.
Yeah, and it's one I'm going to be encouraging all my friends to see, so that I can also talk about it with them, because It's gonna be a good.
Absolutely.
It's a definitely early heavy favorite for the discussion movie of the year.
1,000%. And I'll tell you this: when Molly and I went, we went on a Friday night, granted, but packed theater,
Hmm.
and a lot of audience participation, but in a good way. Like when Pattinson and his coworker started kissing, there was like a oh, like that kind of stuff. And when she was like, "We just kissed," it was like oh, like I mean, the audience was really along for the ride in the right way in this movie.
Yeah. Well, we should talk a little bit about that. So, Rotten Tomatoes score, I was surprised 77% from the critics. I thought that was much lower than I was expecting. And I would just
Mhm.
I kind of I don't do it often where I actually look into what some of the critics are saying. I usually look at the score and that's about it, just to sort of get a general idea. But this is one I might go read some of the critics' responses and see like
Yeah.
what is it that they're saying, held them back from being a higher score on this one.
Hmm.
Audience is 81%. I guess it's not too surprising. Like this is not probably a movie for everybody. Although I would say that there's not a lot in this movie that's gonna, like I said, turn many people off. I don't think like I said, it doesn't get super weird. It's not super. I don't know. There's just not a lot in there that I think I have to worry about people like oh this you're not gonna like this about the movie. But
I mean, yeah, other than just the overall, like the subject matter and how
yeah,
often they say school shooting, that
yeah.
may be off-putting to people.
Yeah, okay, that which reminds me like the scene where they're talking to the photographer the first time and he's already like so in his head about the school shooting idea and she keeps saying, "I'm going to shoot
We're gonna
you
shoot your
and they're going to shoot your
grandpa.
parents." And while he's doing that, you're just hearing these flash bulbs happening like,
That was
psh, 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 like
really
constantly.
well
And it's
done.
like punctuating like every time she talks about it. It's just like yeah, it was really well done, but you're right. I guess if like it could be, I guess, a sensitive thing for some people to sit through.
Yeah.
Um, we did talk about how almost every movie was just caught up in the Super Mario Brothers vortex as far as box office because it was such a huge opening for the Super Mario's Galaxy movie. But my theater was like yours. I was pleasantly surprised with the number of people that were in the theater for mine on a Sunday night showing. This had a $28 million budget from what I saw,
Yeah.
which always helps for it to be profitable. Andy, what
Hmm.
can you tell us about what it's grossed?
So it's made $28 million worldwide in its first weekend. 14 million in the U.S., which maybe doesn't sound that impressive when we're talking about Mario Galaxy making $200 million. But I think for this kind of movie, this is a really hard movie to market. You
Yeah.
know, so I mean, I think it's a win. I really do. And they probably weren't anticipating when they released this movie kind of the Project Hail Mary phenomenon that's going on right now. So I really think it's a win. I really do. And I think that this movie may inspire enough like conversation or like you and I telling people like or people like us, I mean like this movie is so off the wall and different things like I think it might have a decent holdover. And I think it's gonna end up being like a kind of a small hit, which for the kind of movie that it is, I think is a win.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I could definitely see this movie having a good word of mouth, like,
Exactly.
holdover because you're right. It's a hard movie to market. I'm glad they didn't spell it all out in
I am
previews, which
too.
would have been hard to do, but also if they did, it just would have made it less fun. So like hopefully if there's hesitation on people to see it because they're just like, I don't know what it is, and hopefully they got enough people in their life, somebody that is going to see it and saying, just go. Just trust me,
Yeah,
just go.
I think it's going to wind up being a nice little hit, and I think it really bodes well for the Zendaya brand or name or whatever you want to say, like and Pattinson too. But it's like the people that went to see this, I think, went to see it because of them,
Yeah.
and it carved out a nice little number in the midst of Mario Galaxy and Hail Mary, just like we said, when we did Mario, just swallowing up the box office. So.
Yeah, I will admit I was not like excited to see this movie.
Mhm.
It was one where I was like, I probably should see it. It's Zendaya and it's Pattinson and it's A24. It'll probably be like a culturally relevant movie. And now after having seen it, I'm like, well, I hope it's a culturally relevant movie. I hope
Yeah.
it's getting positive attention like that. So
And I completely agree with you. I think it's a strong, definitely so far this year for just kind of like you said, the discussion movie of the year. So,
yeah.
and I have a feeling that Zendaya for sure will be coming up on my list at the end of the year of someone who I think should get an Oscar nomination for this movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I wonder what the Oscar chances are for this movie. 77% from the critics makes me a little like, ooh,
Yeah,
maybe it's not gonna get, that kind of love. I don't know. I mean, look, it's like you've said before plenty of times, it's a big year for movies. We got a lot of big things coming, and so, maybe by the end there'll be enough other good stuff. I won't feel like, it won't be one of those things where it's like, well, they didn't even have good nominees and they left this out, but yeah, I'm still, yeah, I would be inclined to think this deserves something, like a screenplay nomination at least,
screenplay.
something.
Yeah. And it's just, I know I've said it a million times already this year, but it's just wild to think that Zendaya still has Spider Man, The Odyssey, and Dune coming out this year, and the final season of Euphoria. It's just an insane year for her.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Andy. I said it at the end of our last podcast episode. I said I was going to make it my goal to see how many things the drama had in common with Super Mario Brothers Galaxy movie. And
Let's hear it.
and I did it. I made my list.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right. Both movies were released on April 3rd, 2026.
That is true.
That's what I've got. That's my list, Andy.
That's
all
your
I
list,
could,
yeah.
that's all I could come up with. I tried so hard. I was like, I could think of, there's got to be something I could pull, even just humorously. And I was like, man, you're right. You could not have two more different movies.
You could, yeah. They were both released on the same day, and they are both movies that exist in this world.
Yeah.
And that is where the similarities end.
Yep. Oh, man. Well, Andy, I want to end by saying thank you for inspiring me to get out and watch this movie, because I think I think I would have got to it eventually, but you saying, hey, when you get a chance to see it, and you said avoid spoilers, and as soon as you said avoid spoilers, I was like, all right, now I'm curious. That means there's something to this movie that I need to see, and yeah, I still went in a little skeptical, and that opening montage is like, yeah, this is kind of what I expect. It's going to be this weird, just relationship drama with these two, and then yeah, it became something so much more. So, really enjoyed it. Can't wait for hear other people's responses. We always say we want audience feedback. This is definitely one where we want to hear people say, what did you think of the drama?
For sure, absolutely. Thanks for going to watch it. I was really excited to talk to you about this. I had a feeling this might be a long episode.
Yes. But you know what? Yeah, I think I knew it was going to be too. There was just too much to talk about with this.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody who did join us and listen to this whole discussion, and hopefully you found it entertaining and worthwhile. And hopefully you will join us whatever we're talking about in our next episode. We'll be back again talking about something next week.
Something.
Yep. And we will see you then.
See you next time.